Good morning all, I'm Olivia Parfitt and I'll be the facilitator and clerk for this subcommittee meeting this morning, and I'm pleased to welcome you to this remote meeting of the subcommittee. Please accept the apologies for the delay in starting due to technical issues that we experienced this morning. The public proceedings of the meeting will be broadcast live and recorded for playback on the Maidstone Borough Council website. Members are reminded that the instant messaging facility should only be used by members to indicate their wish to speak. From this, we'll go to item 1, apologies. There are no apologies this morning. And item 2 is substitute members, and as there are no apologies, there are no substitute members. Item 3, election of the chairman. Can I ask for a nomination for the chairman, please?
I'd like to nominate Councillor Nagy.
I'd like to second.
Thank you. As we have a nomination that's been seconded, Councillor Nagy, you have been elected as chairman for the duration of this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. So, as chairman, I'd ask if there are any disclosures by members and officers.
No.
No.
Yes. The facilitator will ask members of the subcommittee if they have any disclosures of lobbying, and they must answer either none or yes as specified on the agenda item or items.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Hinder?
None.
Councillor Nagy?
None.
And Councillor Sams?
None.
Thank you, Chairman.
Then I go to item 7. I will ask that all persons participating in this morning's hearing identify themselves, starting with 1, members of the subcommittee. Could we just
Chairman, apologies for the interruption. Can we just go over item 6?
Item 6. To consider any items should be taken in private because of the possibility of disclosures or exempt information. There is none. And then on to item 7. Members of the committee, if you could participate in this, and could you just state who you are?
Councillor Bob Hinder, ward member for Boxley.
Thank you.
Councillor Janetta Sams, ward member for Harrietsham and Lenham.
And Councillor Dave Nagy, member for East Ward. Legal advisor.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Robin Harris. I'm the team leader of the contentious team and the legal advisor to this committee.
Thank you. Senior licensing officer. Is Lorraine there? Have we lost her?
No, sorry. Yes, Lorraine Neal, Senior Licensing Officer.
Thank you. Committee clerk and facilitator.
Olivia Parfitt. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Democratic Service Officer.
Lara Banks. Thank you.
Okay. The applicant and any representatives of Adrian Chena. Looks like we haven't got anyone representing him. Shall we just note that he's not here or not attending? Right, okay then. Other interested parties? Councillor Daly?
Chairman, as I have indicated, I just wish to reiterate my objection to this application.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask that all parties confirm that they have received a copy and are aware of the subcommittee hearing procedure? Is that agreed by everyone? They have that received that?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. I will now explain that the subcommittee will allow all parties to put their case fully and make submissions to the panel within a reasonable timeframe. The procedure will take the form of a discussion led by the subcommittee, with cross-examination usually permitted within a reasonable timeframe. Any persons in attendance behaving in a disruptive manner may be directed to leave the meeting, including temporarily, after which such a person may submit to the subcommittee over the instant messaging facility any information which that person would have been entitled to give orally had the person been required to leave the meeting. If this is not possible, they may be allowed to speak at the chairman's invitation. I will now ask all subcommittee members to confirm that they have pre-read all the papers and other documentation regarding the hearing. Councillor Hinder, do you want to go first?
I can confirm I have read all the papers.
Councillor Sams?
Yes, I can confirm I have read all the papers.
And I can confirm that I have read all the papers. Thank you. Have any draft conditions been agreed between the applicant and other parties for the subcommittee to consider? Obviously, we take that as a no. Lorraine Neal, the Senior Licence Officer, will now briefly outline the application and all representations regarding the application. Miss Neal.
Good morning, members. This is an application that we have to consider in line with our street trading policy. It was refused because 2 representations were received containing relevant objections. In these circumstances, a street trading consent must be refused and the applicant given the option to appeal. The applicant has exercised his right to appeal, and so the matter must now be considered by the licensing subcommittee. The application was received on the 8th of October 20 for the location London Road, Hildenborough Crescent. The hours of trading requested Monday to Sunday, 10 a.m. till 10 p.m, selling pizza and soft drinks. The consultation took place between the 14th and the 28th of October. During that time, 2 objections received, and they're attached as Appendix 3. In summary, those objections are for basically that the location is a traffic hazard. It will also obstruct pedestrians, specifically disabled and partially sighted pedestrians, and also it's likely to cause disturbance and odour. Once the consultation period finished, officers considered the objections and considered the criteria at page 11 of the street trading policy, specifically 7.1 D and E, and refused the application, advised the applicant on the 29th of October, which also advised him of his right to appeal. Mr. Guinea confirmed he wished to appeal on the 9th of October and gave his grounds as that he's never caused an obstruction. So he never parks where he can be an obstruction. He has a very small super silent generator which causes minimum noise, and he has other street trading consents in other places of a similar kind of location. So bearing that in mind, members have the option of granting the consent as applied for, with all the standard conditions that are found at page 13 of the policy, to grant subject to additional conditions that you can consider appropriate, or to refuse the application. So members are asked to give consideration to the application, taking into account the consultation representations, and form a decision. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Ms. Lorraine. Ms. Neal. Well, the next on the list would be the applicant to speak, but there's no one here or anyone on his behalf, is there?
No.
So shall we just move on? Shall we go to Councillor Daly?
Mr. Chairman, sorry, can I interrupt, please? So, obviously, at this point, there's a couple of things. Is that there are, if anyone has any questions for the officer, I'm going to say anyone. Actually, it's members of the subcommittee who are allowed to ask questions of fact of the officer. And actually, I have a question of fact for the officer that perhaps the officer can assist us with. And then after that, we should probably deal with the fact that the applicant isn't here and vote on whether to continue with the application in the absence of the applicant, or whether or not to adjourn the matter.
Okay, it's not. I obviously haven't got it on my agenda, otherwise I would have said that. Right. Any questions for the officer?
May I raise one question, please? Should this application be dealt with on its own merit? In other words, do we take into account that he's got a similar location elsewhere, or should this one stand alone?
You consider each application on its own merit.
Thank you. That's all I needed to know.
Any other questions? Someone wanted to say something?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
I had a question for the officer, with your permission.
Yeah.
Lorraine, what if you could assist me on the application form at paragraph 13, which is on page 7 of the agenda. It states, if not trading on the highway, state whether consent has been granted for use of the land and provide proof of consent. And there's on the papers I have today, it says Maidstone, and the actual specific reference number is redacted. But was that actually was that the details of a planning permission, or I don't entirely understand what consent the applicant?
I think he's slightly confused. That's actually, I think, his food registration reference.
That's what I wanted to clarify.
So I think the answer to that question should have been no.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's what I have.
Okay, so what we're saying is we've received nothing from highways. Is that right, Ms. Neal?
That's correct.
Right, thank you. Any more questions for our officer? Thank you very much. So what's
a question? But I've noticed that my colleague Sarah Beasley from Legal has joined, who is here as an observer.
Okay, do we make a note of that, Olivia?
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you.
I'll make a note of that, Chairman.
Well, the applicant then, obviously he's not here, so he can't say nothing. So shall we move on? There's no one represented him, is there, today?
So, Mr. Chairman, the appropriate thing to do is to decide with the members of the subcommittee whether or not you consider you have sufficient information to continue with the application today, effectively on the face of the papers from the point of view of the applicant, or whether or not you need to adjourn the hearing to another date.
Right. Obviously, I'll go to Councillor Hinder first then.
I consider the information I have is sufficient for the committee to continue and to reach a decision.
Thank you, Councillor Sams.
Yeah, I would agree, only to ask, you haven't got any information as to why the applicant isn't there? No apology or any other information?
Just one thing, if he does join us at the later stage of the meeting, would that be all right? Would that be allowed? If he's got admin problems like we've had this morning? What usually happens when there's a technical problem?
In relation to the meeting procedure, if you make a decision to carry on the meeting without the applicant, but then the applicant arrives late, you can simply deal with the applicant's evidence out of the ordinary order of the proceedings. The important thing in relation to the proceedings is that all the things that have to happen. They're obviously done in a logical order normally, but if the logical order isn't possible, it's also possible to take them in an illogical order, as long as the things that have to happen do happen.
Thank you. Because of our unique times we live in. Then we go on to objectors. Councillor Daly, as an objector, do you wish to ask any questions of the applicant? But can he still ask questions? Or
I don't wish to ask any questions, Chairman, but I've obviously got a statement to make, but I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay, just on that, Mr. Harris, is there now the time to make a statement, or should that come later?
So just to be clear, I think from the two subcommittee members, they will agree to continue in the absence of the applicant. I think that would be helpful just to make sure that was the case, because that's obviously a decision of the committee that needs to be minuted. And then once that's done, then yes, it's the opportunity for Councillor Daly to make his statement.
Well, I'll speak to my fellow councillors then, Councillor Hinder, Councillor Tam. Shall we say that Councillor Daly should put his case now? Do you agree with that?
Yes, I would agree with that.
Councillor Hinder? He hasn't gone, has he?
Sorry, yes, I agree. I was muted, sorry.
Councillor Daly, would you like to make a statement now?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, of course. I want to make it plain, Chairman, I don't object to things without good reason. I would never stop anybody earning a decent wage by his own industry if I thought it was in a reasonable place. But this is both unreasonable and unacceptable for several reasons. First of all, this is on a pedestrian walkway and a cycleway, and is situated on the A20 road, which is a trunk road, which is a clear way, which has nowhere to stop, and there's nowhere that there is able to stop and do the business that this particular function would require. In order to take advantage of a pizza or a burger, somebody's got to stop by the vehicle that's selling the product, and there is nowhere to legally stop on the A20. It is in fact a clear way. If you see the photograph, which I think was attached to the application, it appears to be reasonable, but it isn't in many ways, basically because it's right by a residential property, and I don't mind really whatever happens here, but nobody has asked the resident whether or not they would want this facility right outside their property. It's on the corner of a very busy junction. Hildenborough Crescent itself is very, very busy and is a throughway going through to Castle Road. So however you look at this particular function in this particular place, it is not a good place. And it has got no connection at all with anywhere else that this man may have had ability to work on the Sutton Road. I mean, the two things are just not compatible. So I'm sorry, Chairman, but this is where I'm from, and this is where I'm putting my position now, that this is on a pedestrian walkway, on a cycle route, on a clear way, where there's nowhere for anybody to stop to actually purchase anything legally, and if they were stopped there, they would be causing a blockage. So in every way, unfortunately, this particular position is just unacceptable. Highways, in fact, I've spoken to the area manager only yesterday about this particular thing, and it was passed to the Highways team. But they couldn't say what the answer was. But this is on a pedestrian footpath with a cycleway, and you couldn't set up this thing. And it's right next to a residential property, and the resident hasn't been asked either. So I don't think that this is really a good place for it. I wouldn't mind if they went to a reasonable place where people could stop, but they can't stop here legally. And if they did stop there and were caught by the police, then they'd be in trouble. So there's nowhere for him to sell his goods legally in that particular position. If he comes back with another position and it's in the right place, I will not object. Chairman, I'm sorry, in this particular case, I do object and object strongly.
Thank you, Councillor Daly. I will now ask any members of the panel who have got any questions for Councillor Daly. Councillor Sams?
Not a question. I think that the points made, obviously Councillor Daly's looked quite into this, and I think the map that I sent round and obviously sent to the officers that hopefully both of the councillors on the subcommittee have got, I think it shows it. I think it gives us a much better visual as to where he would be parked. I'd be interested to know how he would be parked and on what bit of that area, but it does seem that it might well be an obstruction on that wide part of pavement, which is, as we've said, highways.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hinder, any comments or questions?
Yes, I'd firstly like to thank Councillor Daly for his extremely detailed comments on this application. Very enlightening, very illuminating, and I entirely thank him for that. No further questions.
Thank you, Councillor. And I'd like to thank Councillor Daly for that very informative comments that he's made. Yes, it's very helpful. Mr. Harris, have you got any comments you'd like to make?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Well, there we go. Well, what do we do when the applicant's not here on this one? Because I can't ask him any questions, or we can't ask him any questions. Is there somewhere where we can make comments, or shall we move on?
So, say we're into a slightly strange world of amending the procedure for the circumstances we have, and so the procedure now is that Councillor Daly, if he wants to, can make a final statement, and then the subcommittee will adjourn the meeting whilst they go to deliberate in private.
Okay, Councillor Daly, anything else you'd like to add to your comments?
No, Chairman, thank you very much indeed. I'll leave it in the hands of the committee. I'm quite sure that they're able to make a decision based on what I have said, hopefully taking that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Do any of the panel members wish to ask any other questions or anything they'd like to query now before anything else goes on?
Just one question, which Olivia may be able to answer. If we go into part two, the access to part two is through Outlook. which isn't working at the moment. So can she give me guidance as to where to go to get into part 2?
Olivia?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, Councillor Hinder, I can sort that out for you in getting you access to a part 2 Skype meeting.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Councillor Sams? Any final comments?
Just to ask the officer, do we know, I mean, obviously there's a big area of footway. Do we know exactly where and how he would be parked?
Well, according to the map he provided, he's basically plonked himself squarely on that corner at the top of London Road and Hildenborough Crescent. I mean, it doesn't actually show the exact site, but the general area is quite clear to see.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I'd just like to make a statement, really. I'm very, very surprised that we don't have any information at all on highways. And I think at the end of this hearing, I will be looking into that, because obviously where you park on private land or highways land is one of the biggest issues, really, with anything like this. And I was very concerned that we don't have anything from highways. And I think that's something we must look at in the future. But yes, it just surprises me. They don't answer to us when we ask them. So I just thought I'd make a comment on that at this time. So before the hearing's closed, I would invite the objector to make any closing speeches, which Councillor Davies already said he's happy with. I now invite the applicant to make their closing speech, which he's not here. And then may I ask the subcommittee members any final questions for the party present, but that's not covered either at the moment. And then I'll ask Mr. Harris, can you confirm whether there are any further matters to be raised or resolved before this hearing is closed?
No, Mr. Chairman, I believe you're in a position whereby you can adjourn the meeting whilst you go into private session. I'd suggest that you indicate that we could return at 11 o'clock with a decision.
So when I close the meeting, then there would just be left up the panel on this Skype meeting and the officers. Is that right, Olivia?
Chairman, it will be the panel members and the legal advisor only going into a separate call.
Thank you very much. I now declare this hearing closed. The subcommittee members, accompanied by the legal advisor only, will now enter into closed session to deliberate. Thank you very much.
Chairman, before you do that, can I please ask one short question? As you're now going into private session, which I understand, do I stay on the line waiting for you to come back, or will somebody telephone me with a response and the definitive answer to this question, please?
Olivia?
Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman. So as objector, Councillor Daly, you are able to stay on the call if you wish, as an indication of a return at 11 o'clock has been indicated. So it is up to you.
Fine. Well, I'll go away and have a cup of coffee. I'll come back later. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Enjoy. And here we are then, in private session now.
Apologies.
Just pause the webcast. Can we just pause the webcast, Olivia?
Pause the webcast.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Do we wait till he's confirmed that he's done that?
Yes, please.
So there is actually a separate meeting for the private meeting. So I don't know if we actually want to leave this call and go into the private meeting. Because obviously otherwise we'd have to make sure everyone else was off the call, wouldn't we?
Exactly. If we can just make sure that the webcast has stopped.
I'll just pop it on webs. Have you popped it on? Just pop it on web. Yeah, it's not paused yet. I can confirm that it's not paused because I can see you live. Just bear with us.
We're still public.
Yes.
They can't get enough of you, Dave.
Yes, some people love me. much, everyone, and welcome back to this bit of the meeting. I can now confirm. Here we go. I would like to, as chairman, I would like to announce that the subcommittee have refused this application as it would cause a nuisance, and that would be in breach of the council street trading policy. And I'd just like to hand over to Mr. Harris now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the council will produce a full written decision with reasons, which will be provided to all parties within 5 working days of this decision being made today. And that there is not an ordinary right of appeal, as there is in most licensing, to a magistrate's court in respect of this, but nevertheless, a party that's aggrieved by this decision is able to judicially review the decision should they choose to do so. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to formally close the hearing then. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman. And thank you.
I would like to have a chat with our legal people, though, after everyone's gone, if that's all right. Could I do that?
I will stay on the call, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.